Hey everybody, welcome back to MSP Business School. As always, I'm Brian Doyle here from VCIO Toolbox, and with me, I've got Rob Rogers and Tim McNeil from OSR Manage. How you guys doing today?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, doing
Tremendous,
good.
can't complain. And if you guys notice, Tim's got himself a new venue up there.
I
He is
do.
a recent movie. Tim, tell us a little bit about where you headed.
Yes. I am no longer a Connecticut resident. I'm living in Lake George temporarily, which is not a bad place to be when it's the beginning of the summer.
Another
So,
smart Connecticut refugee.
yeah, I had enough, and it was time for a change. So, upstate New York it was. We're
Awesome.
closing on a house soon, but in Lake George temporarily.
Well, looks
Uh,
like a nice little venue you're in today. I like the
it is.
woodsy
It
aspect
is.
to it.
Yep. It is not a bad day. Let's put it that way.
All right. So today, guys, we've got kind of a little bit different topic for you. You know, with Tim moving up to New York, and that's kind of part of the reason I wanted to set the table there. Rob and Tim are officially virtual managers. They're both living out in New York now, but the main office headquarters is still down here in Connecticut. In the same on the same vein, we strictly run virtually at VCIO Toolbox. We made that decision prior to even getting started. While we do have a small office space where me and my partner congregate at, the reality is we do the majority of our hires are outside of Connecticut, and we're virtually managing anyway. So with the fact that COVID brought a lot of work from home, there's a lot more companies that we're working with that are keeping people remotely and looking at their real estate holdings to see if there's some ways to potentially save, consolidate, or just better manage. We figured we'd talk a little bit about our virtual management approach and how we're doing things today. So with that said, Rob, Tim, which you guys wants to kick it off?
Well, I'll start it off.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Timmy and I first realized when I was the first one to move up to New York, and one of the first things that we realized was there was a lot less pop-ins when it came to managing, which was good for, your workflow, but it was bad for the culture. So, we were getting less of that face-to-face interaction and just just like walking by, hey, how you doing, as you're walking by to grab a coffee. So, we had always done morning huddles, and the morning huddles were always face-to-face. And so we immediately moved our morning huddles into a Teams environment, and it was mandatory to have your camera on. But, we started realizing that the pop-ins weren't happening. And so we felt like everybody was starting to build silos and becoming less, less interactions. So, and I think this was Timmy's idea, was inside of Teams, we just made an all company chat, and anytime the smallest little thing happens, we send out an all company chat, and it usually is accompanied with the gifs and the memes, and anytime you can just do some type of thing. And it caught on really fast. And then somebody would send out something, and it could be the littlest thing, and you would send out a meme with it, and then another person would send one back, and then pretty soon you got everybody laughing and liking and having a good time. And so we were able to conquer that loss of face-to-face time on the pop-ins with that type of Teams integration with the gifts. So that helped out a lot.
And
Yeah.
that's a key thing, right? How do you keep a corporate culture moving when people start getting a little bit disparate?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
with that, Tim, maybe you can weigh in a little bit on your feelings on that, how that team board that you guys have going on, and really how you feel about the whole process too.
Honestly, it's been a much easier transition than I thought it would be. So when we're in June now, Rob moved up there towards fourth quarter of 2019.
Mhm.
I was worried that having him not in the office was really going to affect like everything. Um, but that wasn't really the case. It was right around the time that Teams really made that transition, and it was just easier to do the video conference and all that stuff. And the transition to like I rarely, if ever, Skype or message somebody individually. I call them. I hit the little button. I can honestly say that I see. This is going to sound bad, but I probably see our employees more now through the computer than I did when they were sitting 10 feet away from me in my office. I mean, it's just the reality, right? So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do, we do the morning huddles. And everybody has to be on video conference, but we also do an end of day call too, and that's at 4:30. So there's two touch points a day where everybody sees everybody,
Hmm.
and some people are allowed to miss, but it can't just be because you don't want to be on, right?
Yeah.
So if you have something pre-scheduled, fine, but short of that, everybody is on at 8:15 in the morning, and everybody is on at 4:30 at night,
Yep.
and it's really worked out very well.
Well, I
It
think
really
that's
has.
critical, right? You're keeping a regular cadence so people know what to expect.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I want to go back to, your guys' concept of pop-ins and seeing people more now.
Hmm.
So, I spent about 20 years strictly in the office, and there was two realities, right, for a lot of managers in those cases. One, while the pop-ins were welcome, they could also be a distraction,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of times I took advantage of the door, right, and just
Yeah.
closed the door and
Yeah.
said, I got to do
Yep.
things. And there would be times where I was actually free to talk to people, but just to kind of keep some continuity on space, I would keep that door closed, just get a few things done. Now, I wasn't the guy that came in at 8 o'clock, closed my door till 5 in the afternoon, but it wouldn't be uncommon. It might be closed for 2 or 3 hours during the day.
Yeah.
So the reality was I wasn't interacting. And now, with Teams and with obviously Zoom and other resources available to me, I just see that there's a lot easier cadence, because the other thing is they tend to be quicker pop-ins. Like the problem that used to happen with the live pop-in was there was a lot more of the pleasantries that would go
Yep.
with it. Hey man, how you doing? What'd you do last night? There's just some portion of this workflow with video where people, when they're like, hey, you got 15 minutes to pop in, even though we might do a video, it seems to get right to the point, right? Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Good, man. How you doing? Bam, let's launch into it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not looking to, look, there's great ways to keep that morale and keep that culture going. Virtual happy hours are a perfect example of it, so you don't get rid of that pleasantry.
Yep.
But it just seems like there's a different focus level when you're working with people remotely and using video as the support than there is in the office, where it's just a little bit easier to kind of get that water cooler talk going.
Yeah.
Have you guys experienced that as well?
Yeah, for sure. I can say definitively, and I'm pretty sure, well, I know I'm speaking for Rob when I say that it was easy to shut the door, and there were times where you could open that door, but man, that door, it was like 8 feet away. It's a long ways to walk when you don't really, you're trying to get stuff done. It could be open, but damn, that 8 feet, it's longer than my arm. So, and it just Teams has changed everything from that standpoint, and now we are to the virtual happy hour point every Friday, anywhere between, depends on the week, depends how crazy things are, but anywhere between 3:30 to 4:30, we have a standing virtual happy hour, and not everybody always joins, but for the most part, everybody does, and honestly, they're kind of cool and they're kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that trend almost everywhere. I've had a few customers kicking me off phone calls uh, during some of the ramp camps we run, because they're like, hey, man, it's virtual happy hour time, because I kind of follow the sun.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So on Fridays, it could be anywhere from 9 in the morning that I'm starting to see happy hours starting
Yeah.
to kick in out in the UK and over that way. And then, I'll keep following across till I get to California, where all of a sudden, they're looking at me at 3 in the afternoon, our time,
Yeah.
going, hey, man, I'm half daying it today. But
I literally did that on
Wow.
Friday. I was on a call that I cut short. I was like, sorry, like the call was already 30 minutes over, and I was like, I gotta go. Sorry. And I just, it was time. Happy hour started. We were all there, and sometimes you gotta separate the business and the pleasure, right? And the happy hours have been really nice for our morale.
Again, it's how do you foster culture when you're sitting in a silo, right? We're in these bubbles all day. I'm in a 12 by 10, box pretty much morning, noon, and unfortunately sometimes at night.
Yes.
And the reality is, how do you kind of keep that continuity of building a culture for a company when you're no longer in that workspace culture, right? You know, it's not Google anymore. We don't have our foosball tables and our
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
all that stuff because
Yeah.
we ever did. But anyhow, talk about some other ways that you kind of try to foster culture during this. Is there anything else you guys are taking as an approach?
Yeah, well, I mean, like since the COVID thing hit and everybody is just, like at home and they're kind of at their wits end sometimes, and they're worried about, kids coming to the background and all this other kind of stuff. I know that sometimes, Tim encourages his kids to, to come into camera view. Right when he knows that he's having a
Yeah.
meeting with the family or with the just
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and his kids are little boys,
Yeah.
right? So they
Yeah.
come into the room and they got their hockey stick, and half the
Yep.
time they're trying to hit dad in the head,
They
just
are.
to kind of lighten it
Yeah.
up a little bit, and let everybody know that it's fine, right? It's completely okay. And we have kind of like a jokey culture. So like when we do these kind of things, it's just to like lighten the mood, make everything better, because like on our side of the business, it's all sales, right? And so everybody all day long is getting, just calling people or, talking to people and getting denied. So it's good to kind of have that kind of jokey, friendly, funny relationship. And so I know that, one of the things that, I do on my side is, every single time, we have this group company chat on our all company.
Yep.
We just make sure that we're always, putting, some type of funny, goofy gif out there a couple of times a day. Because if you remember back in, like when everybody was in the office, I mean, pop-ins were great when you were doing the pop-in, but they sucked whenever
Yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
was doing the
Yeah.
pop-in to you, right?
That's
So
exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, I used to love going into Rob's office
yeah.
just to throw him off track.
Yeah, I would be in the
It
middle
gave
of
me a
this
lot of
big
pleasure.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it did. It would
Yeah.
bring a smile to your face, jerk. I'd lose my mind. But yeah, like so we try to think. Okay, like Timmy and I will actually talk and like, okay, who have we touched today? Who have we reached out to? Are we reaching out enough to this employee? Because I don't want them to feel like they're on an island, like in their house and feeling all stressed out. So like that's one of the things that we actively have to do is just make sure, okay, I haven't reached out to this person today. We need to reach out, and not in a business way, but just hey, everything going all right? Do you need anything? How's everything going? And that's one of the. It can't always be about business when you're making the call.
Yep. And I got to admit, that's where I found Teams has helped too, because I can sit down for 15 minutes while I'm eating a salad and kind of spread that message out to a bunch of different people. Like, hey man, how you doing? Everything all right?
Mm-hmm.
How'd that meeting go this morning? Get those things out. And then I'm waiting for them to respond. Then it's kind of respond when you have the moment, but it forces me to have a way to kind of make those touches. And I'm able to do them in a batch, which really makes it a little bit easier as well, versus kind of in the office where I used to call it making the lap, right? I would go make the lap around here. Then I would go, and the way my last office was, we were in two different sides of the building. So then I would have to go across to the other side, and sometimes I get lost over there too. But the reality is, and I think you guys are hitting on it, and it kind of brings us to the next thing to really think about. How do you have controls and safeguards, in this process too? Because look, I have never been a micromanager. It's probably been one of the biggest things that when I've left organizations in my life, it's usually because I've been asked to micromanage, and I had a good team that I built, and I knew that they could do what it was. And if they wanted me to micromanage, it wasn't going to work because I knew how that team responded. And I believe in, flexibility. I believe in work-life balance, and to do, because I respect people are adults and they know what their task is. They need to be done. Now it's a little bit different remotely, right? One thing I would know is who was in the office before, right?
Yeah.
So now it's kind of, how do we track people that way? Second thing is, how do we hold people accountable in this process? So before I kind of turn the reins to you, I'll talk a little bit how I work, because I've still got a couple of consulting clients in addition to BCIO Toolbox, of course. My consulting clients, similar to yourself, we've got Monday, Wednesday, Friday huddles. There's action items due on each one of those. Mondays is report review day. Wednesday is kind of a status update, and Fridays when I expect, sales and in progress reports back into me, so they're ready for Monday meetings. By having these mini assignments and setting goals every Monday. So even if there isn't an actionable goal that I'm looking for, I'll look at these guys and just say to them, how are you going to challenge yourself this week? give me something you're going to owe me by Friday, and let's see if you can get there. Give me that, the BHAG, right? The big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yep. Yep.
So by doing that and kind of almost gamifying it, I'm seeing it's bringing a little bit of those people in tune with it. When I look at my software side, it's a little bit different. Like, we've got people all across the globe that actually work with us in that regard. And managing them is a little bit different process. So there you're being sensitive of time. I've got I don't have the clocks on the wall telling me time zones, but I certainly do on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And, really there, I try to set reminders based on where people are at in order to engage them. So those are kind of some of the small tactics I take to stay engaged with people at the times that they should be engaged. And then setting some rules around it too. Like, hey, there's still expectations here, guys, You might be able to turn on the stereo in the back of your office while you're working, but I also expect X, Y, and Z to get done. How about yourselves? How are you guys managing your team?
Well, so I will say that probably one thing that we did 18, 20-ish months ago was we started using the EOS model. And by doing that, I think, there's way more to it, obviously. But I will say that I feel like setting up the EOS model for us kind of helped us get through this COVID time quite a bit easier, just because everybody had their defined role. Everybody had their number. Like, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. So whether they're in the office or whether they're working remotely, they still know what they need to do. And then we added in not only the morning huddle, but the afternoon huddle. So that's what we're doing internally. And it's pretty hard to hide when you're using the EOS model the way it's supposed to be used. And I think that we're not micromanagers in the least. I mean, we're the same as you. I mean, we just kind of let people know what they need to do. We do everything we can to train them to the point where they can do their job effectively. And then it's kind of up to them, right? And then we have these regular check-in calls to make sure that they're doing what they need to do.
Yeah. I mean, and to piggyback off that, so in our morning huddle, we focus more on the scorecard, right? The KPIs and the metrics for the previous day. And in the afternoon call, it's more on highlights that happened during the day. And a highlight or headlines more. And a headline could be good, bad, or ugly. It doesn't matter. So it's more on, just anything that we need to tackle. So it's less on numbers in the afternoon and more on, get together, talk about any headlines that we need to address, maybe even that, then or in the morning. And so that's how we did it. We based our morning on the scorecard from the EOS system, right? And so there's just no hiding. Once you get those numbers and those KPIs in place, it's just the responsibility of everybody to get those numbers and do those things. And then you're just checking the dashboard in the morning, right? So that's how we were able to manage, on that side of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And, I think that's the critical thing that you hit upon there is you still got KPIs, you got your scorecards, you've got your metrics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it, the EOS model just in general forces a lot of transparency in the organization, right?
Yes, it does.
And,
yes, it does.
And when you look at the way you follow through with your rocks and your level 10s as an example, it forces you to get things done. Mm-hmm. So realistically, I think the key to virtual management has always been this, making sure people know what's expected. And that's just management 101 as a general, whether you're in person or not. Yeah. When people fail, we always like to look at people failing. And yes, there's times where people just don't have the chops, sales being a great example of it, right? Where they're really not cut out for that industry. But the truth is most people fail because they were never given the proper agenda. They were never told exactly what was expected of them. They weren't told what resources they could tap into and how they can engage with their teams. And whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it virtually, realistically as managers, that's the real key. If you set the right foundation, people tend to follow their, fall in line and follow the path that you lay out for them. If you don't lay out a path, well, of course they're going to struggle.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, one of the things that Timmy and I, always say is if we have to get rid of a person because they just didn't work out, it's not the employee's fault. we either hired incorrectly or we managed incorrectly. It's, hardly ever that person's fault. And so we take that as an opportunity to figure out, okay, what did we really do wrong here? Like, how did we fail this person so poor, so bad? Just like that, putting that spotlight back on yourself, in management is one of the, big keys. And people say, like, I can't stand micromanaging either. And I think that's the death of a salesperson, is micromanaging. And if you ever feel like you have to get to that point, that's just terrible for that person, and for you, right? Nobody wants to, treat somebody like they're a baby and, manage her every single day. But KPIs are super important. And it's not just the KPI at the end result, but the steps to get there. And, just managing those things will help that employee understand where they need to be and where they need to go before it becomes too late.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So with that said, we're getting near the end of our time here. I don't know if you guys have anything additional you want to add. Probably one quick question I'd have for you that we could probably go around the circle and wrap up here is, what's the biggest challenge from the employee's perspective have you seen in a virtual work at home? We've talked a little bit about us managing, but what is some of the feedback that you heard when an employee goes virtual or they're being managed remote to be the biggest challenge that they've faced with you?
I've got two.
Okay.
So the first one is their internet speed is turning out to be a big issue, right? They had Wi-Fi, and it's good for, watching Netflix, but getting on video calls all day long while they have, Office open and everything else, we're getting some lag sometimes and some choppiness. And that's one of the things that they're having. But the really big thing is the perception and the reality in the work-life balance. You got your kids at home, they're trying to, go to school. That's a big mess. They're trying to do their job on a, table or in a little office or something.
Yeah.
And depending on the setup, that could be a really big issue. And working with people, that's just another thing that we have to manage, right? Is, working that work-life balance, because it really is all day long that they're trying to juggle the two.
Yeah. And just an extension of that is like I feel like since COVID came along, everybody having to work from home, like everybody's going through this. What it's created in a weird way is like it's easy to forget what day it is right. So like what I mean is it just like there's no it's almost like there's no defined work week anymore.
No,
it's
yesterday,
just
today, and tomorrow. That's all.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? I don't know. Going upstairs, sitting in front of my computer. What'd you do yesterday? Same.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like it's
weird, right?
There isn't the windshield time of driving in the office and driving back the way most people are used to. So that's
kind of like gets your mind into it. You're about to go to work, get your mind into work and start. Yeah, you're right. You just walk upstairs and go to your office.
Yeah. So that, I think that personally, that was a struggle for me. I know that. And I would say I'm probably not alone on that, but gotten used to it for sure. But yeah, that was kind of a tough one.
Well, I mean, having been somebody that's been working from home now for a couple of years, that commute time being missed is definitely unique. Like, that I'm having a bigger challenge now with the not meeting people live for lunch for my consulting things.
Yeah.
These were the things that broke up my time
Your
in the
day.
box, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So, just as a point of sanity, I used to schedule a couple lunches a week at least with people. And then I had one client that I would go down on Monday mornings and do our meeting live. And just those little things, that's where I would listen to my podcast. That's where I would collect some of my thoughts and do some of my thinking time as opposed to being in front of the computer. And I think you're spot on. The thing I've been hearing from people is it's not so much that they mind that the fact that they're working more, they're just working more because there's nothing else to do in some respects because we're still somewhat restricted. And the problem is that can sap a lot of the energy and creativity out of people. And that's kind of what I'm seeing is like, sometimes I got to force them and go, you're not allowed to respond today with some of the people that we engage with because you need a break. I can just sense it. You need a break and the work will be there tomorrow. Yeah. And, today, tomorrow and all that. Hey, I worked on Sunday, so I could take time off on Wednesday. But those are the interesting things. So, I think with that, I think we've covered a little bit about some of the positives and the pitfalls of, the virtual management process. And, I think I'd love to hear from people out there who are employees being virtual managed, where we might be missing the boat on some of the challenges that they might be facing. And certainly anybody that might be a virtual manager, love for you to reach out as well. Let us know exactly what's going on in terms of how you're doing it and anything we might not be thinking about in streamlining the process. Guys, that's all I've got. Anything else?
That's it for me, man.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
All right.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
Talk to you soon.